Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking news approximately 45 minutes ago, ladies and gentlemen. A big update in the murder trial of Tupac Shakur. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like the cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Ladies and gentlemen, breaking news, breaking news. Just approximately about 45 minutes ago, for the Tupac fans, we're going to get into this straight game. Check this out. Ladies and gentlemen, Keefe D had filed a motion to suppress evidence in the case. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see by the title, the judge denies Keefe D's motion to suppress the evidence in the Tupac murder case. Ladies and gentlemen, the trial, the Tupac murder trial will be moving forward, ladies and gentlemen. I see that there are no more formidable delays. This is for all of the Tupac fans and the people who feel like Tupac deserves justice. Unfortunate for Keefe D, but like I said once again, Keefe D does not have anybody to blame but himself. He was given the deal of a lifetime. And in fact, ladies and gentlemen, this just in 45 minutes ago. I'm going to get into it. Your boy Delray Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter. Like I said, yeah. Today, breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, courtroom in Las Vegas that could seriously impact the Tupac murder trial. Let me tell you what this actually means. The leverage now has shifted. The leverage now has shifted for everybody who thought that they could predict what was going on. I've never tried to do that. Like I said, I want this situation to play out like it's supposed to play out, if you will, right? Las Vegas judge who has officially denied Keefe D's legal team motion to suppress evidence gathered during the 2023 search of his home. So he filed a motion saying that somehow, some way, that the police lied to the judge, the grand jury, the information that they obtained to get the warrant was not true. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge has basically denied Keefe D's motion to suppress the evidence gathered during the 2023 home search. That means prosecutors can use everything, listen to me, everything they recovered in court when the case heads towards trial. That's devastating. Like I said, we don't know about all of the things that they have in regards to that. Like I said, all of the evidence that they have that hasn't really come out, what they collected or whatever. But in any situation, you would hope that one could, win a motion or two, if you will. But the judge says, nah, I don't think that they lied to anybody. Nah, I don't think that they obtained any of the evidence illegally. The judge says basically, hey, it was all above board. All above board. And like I said, that means that the prosecution can use everything they recovered in court when the case heads to trial, right? And trust me, that's a big deal, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big deal. Like I said, today, approximately 45 minutes ago, we breaking it down, what happened, what it means legally, and what this could do to the entire direction of the Tupac Shakur case. I can tell you one thing right now, it puts it more in the favor or in the light of Keefe D having to take some kind of deal. It would be advantageous to him to take some kind of a deal, if you will. But like I said, we've seen people, take it to trial, you know what I mean, and try to, do what they can do there, right? So let me just tell y'all what just happened in court. Here's the update. Keefe D's attorney argued that police misled the judge when they got the search warrant back in 2023. That was the argument. Their goal was simple. If the search was ruled improper, the evidence would get thrown out. If the search was ruled improper, the evidence would get thrown out. That's basically what you call suppression, when they suppress the evidence. And like I said, it was against the law. It was an illegal search and seizure. But the judge didn't buy it. The judge wasn't buying it. She basically ruled the search warrant was valid, which means everything seized from Keefe D's home can now be presented at trial. Computers, documents, photos, digital material, anything tied to the investigation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is breaking news. This is approximately 45 minutes ago to an hour ago. So yeah, and why this matters legally? Why does it matter legally? Like I said, to the fans who feel like Tupac never got justice, or justice has been long and an arduous process. This is where what people really need to understand, and how serious this is. Like I said, once again, and I've been, talking about this for some years now. What you really need to understand and how serious this is. Suppression motions, ladies and gentlemen, are often a defendant's strongest weapon before trial, right? When somebody, submits a suppression motion, they're trying to get something knocked off the case. They got the gun illegally. They got the drugs illegally. They illegally searched my car and all of those things. A lot of times, what we don't hear is, a lot of times some of those motions to suppress, they usually stand up in court. Illegal search and seizure, whatever have you. In this case, ladies and gentlemen, in this big of a case, you know what I mean? It didn't work. It didn't work. I didn't think it was going to work either. Like I said, I thought it was they were kind of throwing, stuff at the wall, basically seeing what was going to stick, which lawyers are supposed to do. You try to, do whatever you can. So my question is, I wonder if the lawyers are saying, hey, you know what? Do we talk about taking the plea? Or do we say, hey, you know what? Let's try that trial and maybe try to do something on appeal. This case is so devastating for Keefe D that it's I've never seen a case like this ever in my life. I don't think anybody has, where somebody was given a deal and they went out, wrote a book, talked about it beyond what they were supposed to do, didn't really understand the ramifications of what they had agreed to under those circumstances. And now the Tupac Shakur murder case is finally going to go to trial. I don't think that there's nothing else that they possibly can do to try to stop this, postpone this. Like I said, August 10th is the date. And like I said, why it matters legally, right? Like I said, suppression motions are often a defendant's strongest weapon before trial. If key evidence disappears, prosecutors sometimes lose their case. That's a lot of times. I know a couple of people, back in my neighborhood, they would blowing some trees, if you will, and the police stopped him. They was like, he didn't stop at the stoplight, and they searched the car and they found something or whatever. And under the guise in which they said that they stopped him and the reason that they had to search the car, right? There's certain Supreme Court laws that that allow a person to not be their rights not to be trampled on, right? And like I said, hold on, let me see something. Do I got it? I don't know if I got one of those. Yeah, but what I want to show you, let me see something. I want to show you this. I don't think I got none. I'll tell you like this. More importantly, check this out. So, and I want you to understand, this is how serious it is for me. My last album that I put out, ladies and gentlemen, my last album, you can go look at it on YouTube. I'm not asking you to buy anything. You can go listen to it free on YouTube. It's called Master Mason in Hip Hop Grammar, right? It's called Master Mason in Hip Hop Grammar. Go look on YouTube, Master Mason, Delray Master Mason in Hip Hop Grammar. I put 12 Supreme Court cases on there that govern the rules of engagement when you being pulled over by police officers, because a lot of us don't know our rights, right? And so it's so imperative that you understand this, and that's why I did this. That's why I did that. That's why I put that album out, and I put in between every song, I put the Supreme Court case the governing and controlling case, because those are the cases that get argued in front of judges around the country, be it in state court or be it in federal court, right? And so, like I said, for me, it's very important. Not only do I like covering the Tupac thing, but I love the law and how the law works. You know, if you really understand it, they say you can bend it, but don't break it. That's true, you know? And so, like I said, once again, if you go on YouTube, my album, right? Master Mason in Hip Hop Grammar, and you're going to see it. And as you listen to the album, every interlude after every song, it has a Supreme Court case on there, ladies and gentlemen. And so, like I said, we're back to the Keefe D situation. Like I said, you're dealing with this motion to suppress. It's the strongest weapon that a defendant has, especially in criminal court, right? If the key evidence disappears, the prosecution sometimes lose their case. If Keefe D would have won this motion, I wouldn't say that all of what they tried to do would have been lost, because he still had the interviews and things like that. But they didn't even try to deal with the interviews and things of that nature in his statements, if you will. And this is the key. And this is power to, like I said, a shout out to the Art of Dialogue. They, in this particular case, in this motion, they used the Mike Tyson excerpt from the Art of Dialogue's interview, right? To be able to combat the motion that Keefe D filed. And like I said, I wouldn't say it was because of the Art of Dialogue, but based on the question that was asked. And I told you guys this the other day, where the Art of Dialogue asked him, he said, so what do you say? And listen to what I'm about to say now, because it didn't refer, this is the question that was asked. What do you say to Mike Tyson saying that all he needs is 5 minutes with Tupac's killer, right? And Keefe D went off on a tangent. Now, Art of Dialogue wasn't saying that Keefe D was the killer. He said, what do you say to Mike Tyson, who said all he needed was 5 minutes with Tupac's killer? And Keefe D went off on a tangent, ladies and gentlemen. Holding up the gun gesture, talking about, and all I need is 1 second with him. You're talking about how he was a gangster and blase, 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 blah. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the things, if you were ever to know about anything about the law, the first thing, listen, like I said, go to check out the album that I put out, man, Master Mason and Hip Hop Grammar, and go listen to it on YouTube. And you're going to see what I'm talking about, right? Rule number 1, right? You have a right to remain silent. What right is that? That is your Fifth Amendment right. Your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. I'm not talking, right? And if any questions that you got for me, I would need you to ask my lawyer. It is just simple as that. You see a lot of times, brothers, they get pulled over, like, I ain't did nothing. Officers say, step out of the car. I ain't stepping out of nothing. Once again, when you understand the law, the officer can ask you to step out of the car. Your best bet is to step out of the car. Ladies and gentlemen, right? Your best bet is to step out the car, because legally he can ask you to do that. But a lot of times we exacerbate the situation about, just the reaction. Keep calm. You know what? Ask you a question. Where you going? I don't do personal questions. I don't do personal conversations. All I do is license and registration. And these are some of the things that I've used, right? When I understood the law, I don't do personal when the police ask you, so where you headed? So where you coming from? I don't do personal conversations. All I do is license and registration. Would you like to see those? Yes. Is it okay if I grab over into my glove compartment to get that for you? Yes, sir. Here you go. Boom. I don't want to talk no more. I'm not saying nothing else. There's nothing to talk about, right? So this case right here is so paramount, like I said, once again, in them using the Art of Dialogue's interview, the Mike Tyson part, right? He just did. I mean, a lot of the stuff that Keefe D said, he didn't even have to say, but it's too late to rewind it back now, right? And as we see today, approximately an hour ago, Keefe D's motion to suppress the evidence in the Tupac murder trial has been denied, and the case will move forward. The case will move forward. And you know what? Keefe D's old attorney, Carl Arnold, I think he understood what it was and what it was about in regards to whether they stood a good chance on winning the case. I think once he filed that motion, he filed the motion to dismiss based on Keefe D's former lawyer, Carl Arnold. He filed the motion to dismiss based on the fact that he said that Keefe D had the immunity agreement or the proffer deal, right? And the judge denied that. So if the judge denied that, I think Carl Arnold kind of knew, like, you know what? It's not going to work. And so for all of the people who have been talking about, and like I tell you, a lot of these people are talking, but they really don't know what they're talking about. To be able to understand the law is different than when you're talking about it on YouTube, and then you understand how the court a case is going to work. You see what I'm saying? And so everything now that they found in Keefe D's house can be used in court. Point blank, period. Right? Everything stays. Right? Everything stays. Everything. All of whatever they found, bullets, stuff on the computer, whatever they found. And if it's anything damning, which we don't really know, if it's anything damning, yeah. So right now, the leverage, if Keefe D would have won the motion, the leverage would have shifted in his favor. The prosecutor probably would have came to him and say, hey, look, we're going to offer you 5 years. Time served, right? Not going to happen. Now, the pendulum have shifted over now to the prosecution, and now they have leverage, right? And so now it's Keefe D lawyer who probably has to walk over and say, hey, you know what? We're willing to make a deal. Or not. Like I said, they say they shooting some kind of and that was another thing. The news about the documentary that they were shooting came out in the process of them actually, and the judge actually going over this motion. Bad move. Judges read the news. Judges sometimes have friends in places where they get an email. Look at this. Oh, they're planning to do a documentary? Oh, this is brazen. Not even knowing whether you're going to win the motion or not win the motion. Right? I thought strategically that was bad. Like I said, but I'm not the lawyer in Keefe D's case, and I'm not a lawyer, but I do understand optics and how things look and how people make things look, right? And so, yeah, look, prosecutors just got a major boost heading toward trial. A major boost, right? A major boost, right? And listen, the context and the timeline for viewers. Let's rewind. Let me take you back real quick, right? 1996, Tupac was shot in Las Vegas. The case went cold for decades, 30 years. 30 years, ladies and gentlemen, for decades, right? 2008, 2009, Keefe D gives statement about being involved to the LAPD, the U.S. Attorney, and the FBI. And then in 2009 to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, where he confessed over and over and over again to his involvement and consistently saying the same thing, right? 2019, Keefe D publishes a book and then starts to give interviews, right? 2023, arrested and charged with murder. So you think about it. 20, 21, 22, 23. So he put the book out in 19 and he arrested 4 years later for the murder, right? And now in 2026, finally, the trial is finally approaching. And so for everybody who got these theories, it's the government, it's this, it's that, like I told you, this thing that RJ Bond put out talking about all of this, ladies and gentlemen, That's noise. That's noise. Because I'm sure that Keefe D's attorneys tried to use some of what that they had in that documentary in court. And it didn't go like they thought it would go. And they probably tried to use, listen, I'm going to give you some game. Check this out. The same interview that they used to combat this motion, right, is the same interview from the Art of Dialogue that RJ Bond them used to try to trip up what Keefe D was saying as to whether he met up or saw Tupac them on, what's that, Friday night, the night before the fight. It's the same interview. You get it? It's the same interview, different parts. So once you understand that and you get it, yeah, it is what it is. That's how the court works. That's how the judge can look at this and say, well, you know, he's saying this, he's saying that, he's saying this. But this right here, in regards to what he's saying here, oh, and they made it clear that that's what they were using to combat this motion, the Art of Dialogue's interview. And so on both sides, and it just seems like, okay, the prosecution won this one. Excuse me. So like I said, once again, listen, so this ruling right here keeps the momentum right now on the prosecution side of things. I don't know what other motion they possibly could file right now that could change to change the situation in this case, if you will. I don't know what other motion they can file. Right? And listen, and what this evidence really, truly, honestly could mean, right? We don't know every detail publicly yet about what they have. We don't know that. We don't claim to know that or none of those things. But historically, right? Investigators were looking for what? They were looking for written records. They were looking for photos. They were looking for gang connections. They were looking for communication evidence and anything corroborating Keefe D's own statements, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. Any text messages between Keefe D and Vlad, Keefe D and all the dialogue, Keefe D and whoever, for whatever, for anybody, right? The communications, they looking for everything that they can say, okay, cool. You know, whatever this is, whatever it was, that's what they were looking for. And now whatever they found, not to say that they found any of those things, but whatever they found, now they can use it. And remember, this case has always leaned heavily on his own words, heavily on what he said. Like I said, if physical or digital evidence backs that up, listen, if any physical evidence or digital evidence backs that up, that strengthens the prosecution's case significantly. Significantly. Like I said, minus what they telling you, minus what people trying to put out these documentaries and trying to, you know, get a quick payday and all of those things. Like I said, once again, what's going to work is going to work because it's substantive. And you can imagine, right? When they get into court, if the case goes to trial, when they get into court and they play the part about Mike Tyson, all of these things are going to be very impactful to the jury. I'm not talking about what somebody telling you and what they feeling on the internet about Suge Knight having, you know, killing Tupac because he was all of that stuff was lies, ladies and gentlemen. About Little Half Dead, all of that stuff was lies. People didn't know, they weren't around, they're not from the culture, they didn't understand what was going on, right? So nobody knew who Keefe D was until, you know, people who on the street knew who he was, but I'm saying nobody in the real public eye really knew who Keefe D was until we seen the murder rap and like, oh, somebody confessed, what? You know, and then he started doing interviews. You see what I'm saying? And so, yeah, but this blow right here today, about an hour and 15 minutes ago, yeah. Hell of a way to come back off a 3-day weekend. You know what I mean? It strengthens the prosecution case significantly, right? And let's talk about the bigger cultural impact, if you will, right? This is not just about a legal case, if you will, right? You know, it's cultural. It's culture, right? Right? Tupac's death shaped hip hop history. One of the most prolific artists of our time, right? For nearly 30 years, ladies and gentlemen. 30 years. The rumors, the speculation, the finger pointing. Now we're closer than ever to an actual courtroom resolution, right? Despite what people think they feel, what people think they know, you know, all of these theories and all of these things. And let me tell you this. It was Keefe D's words, like I told you the other day, that put him in prison. No one individual or person or entity or anything is responsible. Like I said, I think when he first went on Vlad, he was a little bit apprehensive, and actually, from what I understood with the first interview, he had a lawyer in the room with him, right? He went on the art of dialogue. He was a little bit apprehensive at first, you know what I mean, in regards to that. But you know, they eventually, you know, got through it. Then as he went on the art of dialogue a little bit more, he began to loosen up. And that was the last interview that he did before he was arrested in 2023, was the interview on the art of dialogue, where he was talking about brother love, help a brother love, talking about Sean P. Diddy Combs to help him out, if you will, right? So like I said, this is not just the legal case, it's cultural, right? For nearly 30 years, we had nothing but rumors, speculation, finger pointing, Suge Knight, the government. They had a light. They killed him for the life insurance. They killed him because he was going to leave death row. You know, all of these things that people were saying, right, ladies and gentlemen, you had someone actually come out and cop to the murder based on the fact that they had got caught up in something else. You know what I mean? In drug dealing. And like I said, he felt like he could do a deal, and he did that deal, right? He did the deal with the government. He did the deal with the government. And evidently, Keefe D didn't keep his part of the deal. Once again, you have a right to remain silent. That is your Fifth Amendment right. If you know anything like any gangster that I've known, the guys who really get respected and might go to jail and sit down for a long time, but when they come back home, their reputation is intact, right? It ain't too much that they can't get. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, when you understand that, you got people that have done that, and hey, it is what it is. When you out there doing the, doing the crime, don't trip about doing the time. You see, just like I told you guys, even the situation about Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. when he got caught up in the insurance fraud. I'm not sorry, not insurance fraud. I apologize. The bankruptcy fraud, right? Involving the situation with Suge Knight. You know what I mean? And so, you know, he didn't go to jail. He got caught red-handed. Why? You know what I mean? We still trying to get to the bottom of that. Once again, like I said, and listen, the reason why I bring that up, in and around at the same time, and this is no coincidence. Check this out. In and around the same time, because you know, the situation with Greg Kading and all of that, in around at the same time that Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. had sent the letter to the prosecutor, the U.S. Attorney's Office, saying that he wanted to sit down for a proffer deal, for a proffer session, should I say, right? The same thing that they alleged that Keefe D had, but we don't see that he has that right now because he argued it in court and he lost. The same kind of situation, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. actually had his lawyer contact the United States attorney to sit down for a proffer deal. And some assume, right, or it's alleged, right, that it was for the Biggie Smalls case, right? And what happened in that Biggie Smalls situation? Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. made some alluded to, should I say, he alluded to the fact that that's what it was on Bums First. You get it? I say that to say this. Remember, this is around 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009, and where Keefe D, right? And I might do another video on that. And where Keefe D was also getting his proffer deal, right? And going through the situation with 2008, 2009, and 2007, probably whatever was going on, they were investigating. And so when Keefe D says, well, if I go to jail for Tupac murder, listen, because Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. was talking about, they looking at Keefe D, they watching people, they ready to make an arrest. So it seemed like he knew that they was gonna make an arrest before everybody else did. And he was online kind of like betting on it. You see what I'm saying? Us not knowing personally that he had already been and talked to the grand jury involved the Keefe D situation. Right? So when Keefe D said, yeah, if I go to jail for Tupac murder, then Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. should go to jail for Biggie Smalls murder. I was like, wow. But then when I saw that both of those situations happen in and around at the same time, I'm wondering how much information was shared that Keefe D would be able to make that statement, knowing that he had got a deal, right, for the Tupac situation, right? And on around at the same time, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. is trying to do a proffer session with the United States Attorney in regards to what? You get it? Right? So like I said, after all of the rumors, after all of the speculations, all of the finger pointing, now we're closer than ever to an actual courtroom resolution, ladies and gentlemen, involving the murder of Tupac Shakur. And whether people like it or not, listen, whether people like it or not, facts carry more weight than conspiracy theories. I'm going to say it again. Whether people like it or not, facts carry more weight than conspiracy theories. And it'll do that every time. It doesn't matter who you are. The facts carry more weight than conspiracy theories. So like I said, once again, I addressed the situation where people adopted this theory, well, Tupac is alive. Tupac got picked up in a helicopter, and taken to Cuba. Tupac is in Venezuela. Tupac is in Africa, right? Once again, people have to own up to the part and the confusion that they caused and the part that they played in being who they are. You see what I'm saying? At the end of the day, this is not about one or two people. This is not about, one platform versus another platform. If you're going to get on here, you better keep it 100% accurate. No speculation. Try to keep it factual. Everything I'm giving you right now is facts. It's nothing but straight game, right? And like I said, I appreciate everybody in the chat that come through to listen to me every day. Hit the like button, hit the thumbs up button. Like I said, more importantly, like I said, thank you for your support. So ladies and gentlemen, what happens next? That's the big question, right? What happens next? Here's what's coming. Like I said, everybody been like, yo, Pac can get justice, whatever, for all of the fans, right? The readiness hearing, right? Where they have a readiness hearing, making sure the prosecution is ready to put on their case, the defense is ready to put on their case, right? The trial is already scheduled. And the judge gonna call and say, hey, you guys are, ready to put on your case, and they share evidence, or discovery or whatever, all of those things, right? The trial is set for August 10th, right? And let's be clear, there could be more motions possible. I see possibly a motion to try to suppress some of the videos, but I don't think that's gonna work either. If the evidence to suppress, check it out, and you got to understand this because this is in reverse. If the evidence if they put up a motion and the evidence to try to suppress the videos, right? I can't really see that being succeeding, if you will. And the reason why I can't see it succeeding is because there was video evidence used to actually defeat this motion that Keefe D's lawyers put up. That's the reason why. So it's kind of in reverse. Usually, if they would attack the videos first and those would have get knocked out, then the case probably wouldn't have went nowhere. But the fact that they tried to attack the evidence that was collected at Keefe D's house, and that motion was defeated by a video from the Art of Dialogue, I can't see where any judge, or the judge Carly Kearney, I can't see where she would be like, you know what? Yeah, we don't think this will work, because then that would undo or make it right for appeal that they stopped the suppression motion with video, if you understand what I'm saying. So like I said, there could be more motions possible, if you will, right? And potential witness developments, they started presenting like their witnesses and who they got coming to court. We're gonna find that out, Like I said, but the leverage has just shifted to the prosecution, right? Like I said, this case is far from over, right? But today's ruling keeps it moving forward. It keeps it moving forward. And like I said, you can best believe, if I'm, thinking about how, or should I say what's at stake, Keefe D's, the rest of his life is basically on the line. So, to pull out all the stops other than going to the prosecution and say, hey, you know what, we want to make a deal. What do you got for us? And that was the reason why I said that in the situation where Keefe D had, made the outburst in court, I'm like, you don't want to do that. Because the prosecutors could be, sometimes they could be like, you know what, we just want this situation to be done. You know what I mean? Keefe D's lawyers say, hey, he wasn't the shooter. He was involved, But then they take into all of the other circumstances, his criminal record, the things he said, and all of those things. I think one of the most damning statements that he made was when he said that they were standing on a corner and they seen the ambulance ride by, and he said that it was some funny ass shit. It was funny as shit. You know what I mean? When he said that, I think that's one of the most callous statements that a person could possibly make. When you going in front of a judge and you going in front of a jury, because that basically says that you had no remorse. And there's certain instances, to be fair, that Keefe D did say, you know what? I wish it wouldn't have happened. I wish that night wouldn't have happened, and all of those things. He said that also on the Art of Dialogue. So I got to be fair with that. You know what I mean? He said that he would. But like I said, sometimes those statements don't see the day of light like the other statements do, because the other statements are a little bit more incendiary and they get a little bit more traction in the media. So that's the where, a person has to be really, really careful. And so, like I said, once again, but yeah, this keeps the case moving forward, ladies and gentlemen. Like, over here, Straight Game TV, like I say, we don't really try to do no gossip, ladies and gentlemen. We deal with documented history, court records, real conversation. This ruling doesn't prove guilt. This ruling that came down today, the motion denial, it does not prove that Keefe D is guilty, right? But what it does mean, right, is the truth is getting closer to being tested in a courtroom instead of the internet. I'm gonna say it again, right? What it does mean is that the truth is getting closer to being tested in a courtroom instead of the internet. And that matters, like I said, because Tupac legacy deserves facts and not mythology, right? And not these rumors, not these crazy ass ghost stories and things like that. And then, like I said, when it's winning, when the ghost stories and the Tupac is alive stories are winning, people are all in the videos is doing numbers. People are all with it, right? When it's not doing any more numbers now they got to find somebody to attack. Like I said, once again, the strategy needs a reassessment, right? It's not personal. It's just business. The strategy and the structure needs a reassessment. And sometimes you can get back and sometimes you can't. Like I said, if you rocking with real conversations, ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, drop your thoughts below. Tell me what you think. If you're a Tupac fan, if you're a Keefe D fan, like I said, I want to hear from everybody. Drop your comments below. Do you think that this evidence that they found at Keefe D's house, do you think that it strengthens the case, right? Or does the defense still have some moves left? Does Keefe D's side still have, some things that they can pull out, some cards that they can possibly play to try to get a motion or two, or win a motion or two, if you will? Do you think that, right? Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time. Each and every one of you guys up in the chat. What's going on? Let's see who up in the chat. Shout out to Fatima in the building. Yaya Kids in the building. Miss Pretty and Petty. Who else? Chat Martin in the building. Thanks for the donation earlier. Abigail. Appreciate you. Who else? Everybody enjoy your week. Absolutely. Twin. Who else? If I don't get you, don't blame it on my don't blame it on my heart, blame it on my mind and my eyesight. No, I got y'all. Who's that? Shadow, Papito was good. Virtual Vinsanity. Who else? Yaya Kids again. Jake W1C. Rolling with Jay was good. Jermaine. Rain 2 Day. Who else? Who was that? Was that Terror or Terror? That's what it looked like. Gerald Pipers. Who else is that? God Loves You, 2521. King Third. Woody C.Y. Who else? I'm scrolling back up, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to get you. Jermaine, what's good, Jermaine? Jermaine D. 9EX. And like I said to everybody, my man, who's that? Black 23. And everybody else in the building. Y'all kids, always a pleasure. Like I said, be careful to the information that you take in. Who was that? Ralphie Smith. What's good? From Florida. JD 6071. What's happening? Always a pleasure, player. Yes, indeed. And to everybody else, like I said, thank y'all for tuning in, man. More importantly, yeah. And like I said, if you want to know, because a lot of times we don't have time to, study the law. Like I said, I've got a lot of law library books and things like that I read, just trying to, always stay sharp on it, right? More importantly, like I said, go to YouTube, type in Master Mason and Hip Hop Grammar, my album, and like I said, you will hear the Supreme Court cases that govern, the controlling cases that govern the rules of engagement by law enforcement, and all of the things that one should really, really know. Like I said, it's one thing to not know, right? But it's another thing to not really want to learn. You see what I'm saying? And like I said, once again, I appreciate it. Smash the like button, smash the thumbs up button. I appreciate y'all. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be more to come. We know now that the case and the Tupac murder case is moving forward and going to trial. So far, there will probably be new motions and things like that, but we're going to wait to see what comes up. More importantly, your boy Delray, yeah, straight gang.
They said Tupac was untouchable, but behind the walls of Rikers Island, he was just a man, wounded, watching his back, and wondering who he could trust. He survived bullets, betrayal, and isolation behind bars. But what happened inside those walls has never been told until now. In the darkest corner of Rikers, he found betrayal and a brotherhood no one saw coming. These dudes smiled in my face, then flipped and tried to kill me, and I never saw it coming. They were Puff's security, Biggie's muscle, Henchman's people, and Tupac knew exactly who sent them. This is the side of Tupac Shakur the world never got to see, told by the man who lived it with him, not in the studio, but in a 6x9 cell. The rap battles, sex and drama with female guards, the tears, the silence after Jada Pinkett's visit, and the moment Tupac almost broke. Before Death Row, before All Eyes on Me, before Machiavelli, there was Rikers. Behind the Walls with Tupac Shakur, available now on Amazon. Get your copy. Learn the truth.
Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.